What's up, Kurt? Welcome back to the Dark Waters, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, it's been a while, right? It's probably the longest we ever gone without talking to each other.
It's been a little bit, a couple weeks, right?
Yeah. Well, shit. How's life, man? You're still in the water catching those hybrids, right?
Yep. Man, life's been pretty good. I can't complain about that, man. We have open water here still, so I'm able to get out and catch some fish. It hasn't been the best season for me on the river, but I'm not complaining. The past 4 years have been ridiculously good, so you can't have every season be the best season, right?
Right. Well, see, I don't know what to do, Kurt. I mean, like there's open water here in upstate New York. I just don't know if I want to go out there and fish it. It's weird. I was going by the river today, and it's wide open.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, the rivers don't freeze as bad, but like there's like the shorelines aren't even frozen right now. I could very easily get a kayak out there. I just don't know if I really want to go out there because it's still cold up here.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about catching the fish. I mean, if you can't catch any fish, it's almost not worth risking your life,
Yeah, exactly. And I don't have any of those water suits that you guys are wearing. So.
Oh yeah. You definitely want a dry suit, man. There's no doubt right now you want to get a dry suit.
So, all right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. Also, I wanted to catch up. A few things I want to talk to you about, and then obviously the season's over, but the next season's already started. It feels like so. I mean, I know you're getting pretty pumped up. I know Seminole's not too far away, but let's catch up. Let's rehash last year just a little bit. Like, how'd you feel at the end of it? I know it was like a weird year for you, right? Like you did good. You accomplished like 2 goals, pretty quickly, and then like watching you kind of shows like the highs and the lows of like kayak fishing stuff, because you come up a big win, and then you go to a place, and I can't remember which one it was that you told me, but like you didn't even really fish the second day because it was just like it was such a like whatever, a bad event. But it's just crazy how you can have a great year or a great event, and the next event be completely opposite. And then you look at someone like Russ Snyder, who thought that Russ Snyder wasn't going to be the tournament champion, not just winner, but also the angler of the year. It's amazing how like this sport will it will pump you up, but it'll also bring you down real hard too.
It will, man. I mean, it's such a sport of highs and lows. You know what I mean? You like you said, man. You place third, then you win one, and you're like riding super high. You're first for the AOI. And then Russ Snyder starts turning it on, right? Jody Queen starts turning it on, and they start ramping it up. And those guys are such good anglers, but then it shows you come down to the TOC, and both those guys couldn't get it done, and that just shows you how competitive it is.
Well, yeah, what do you think about Drew Gregory, Kirk? I mean, he came out of nowhere. I don't even think he fished the first half of the year. I didn't hear from him since like the 10 or whatever that the KBF did, and then all of a sudden like he comes like in August or something, and then becomes the Hobie Angler of the Year.
Badass, dude. I mean that, dude, and it's badass. That's all I can say, man. He missed some events, like you said, right? He missed a couple big events, but then he came on strong, and he had the placings, man. And then he put it together enough at the TOC to become Angler of the Year. And man, it's not easy being the Hobie Angler of the Year. I mean, you only have so many chances to do well, and that's just it, man. I mean,
Yeah.
And to put it together like that is really hard. And honestly, I kind of feel like the Hobie's Angler of the Year is underrated for what it should be.
Right.
I think there should be more attention put on that Angler of the Year, because I feel like out of all the trails that are out there, it's a true representation of who put it together.
Yeah. I was thinking
in-person events. You know what I mean?
I was thinking about that too, and like not to like shit on KBF or anything, but like.
Oh no, not at all.
But it's like it's very hard to get. Because for one, like the events are spread out, and there's only these like whatever 8 events that you have in the year to like rack up the points. But KBF did this weird thing where like they had like you could win Saturday and Sunday at these regional events. Compared to where like every single event was a national event with Hobie, and there wasn't a second day to get it right. Like you had that one event, and that was all the points you could get. And that was it. Like there wasn't very many opportunities. Like if you
no online stuff, man. It was all head to head. There was no question about like someone has a honey hole someplace.
Right.
Everybody fishing the same water every single time to make it for the angler of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. There's just something I think unique and, like I said, underrated. I don't think people realize like how hard and like competitive like the Hobie the Hobie events are. Like there is no other options. Like what you see is what you get when that schedule comes out. That's the schedule. That's it. You have to make those events or you're just not going to make it. And so, I mean, I still can't believe that like Russ Snyder didn't get it. You know what I mean? That was just something that just shows you how crazy this sport is, man. It's just like I had no idea that. For one, I didn't even know Ryan Lambert was still competing, more or less about to be the tournament of champions. It's just crazy how this sport will do it to you, man.
Yeah. There's a lot of twists and turns that come up in it, man, and it's a long season too, right?
Yeah.
We go from February, the first week of February, to like the third week of November now. I mean, dude, that's a long season. That's a long season.
Yeah, and you really think about it because when I first started talking to people on the podcast, it was right before the season started. And you look at someone like Jake Harshman, he won the first event last year, and that was, it just seemed like it was forever since then. And like the sport was completely different or in a different spot by the time, like August or whatever comes, because so many events have happened, but it's just a long, grueling, thing. Like, I mean, like 7 months of it.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes on, and really, it's 9 months of it now. I mean, if you make the tournament of champions, you're fishing from like February through November. I mean, you're fishing 9 months.
Yeah.
Of elite competitions.
Yeah.
And hell, if you wanted to, you could kind of squeeze in a couple more in between November and February too.
Right. Yeah. If you wanted to. Yeah. It's crazy. But yeah, man. I mean, you finished pretty strong. I mean, you gotta be happy. Like, I mean, to actually win. That's what people like is also underrated too. Like winning a Hobie event. Like, there's only like 8 people that can win it a year.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And then when you got someone like Russ and Snyder who are winning like 2 apiece, it's got to feel great to have like that check in the background that says first place on it, because not a lot of people get those.
Yeah, it does, man. It does, and I finished in the top 25, right? Anglers. So, dude, there's room for improvement, but for me, that's awesome, dude. I'm super stoked about it. That's the top 25 most competitive anglers in the country. Dare I say, even the world, right? Competing in this. So it's, I'm stoked about last year. I wish my tournament of champions would have turned out a little different,
Yeah.
But that's just how this game rolls, you know what I mean? I mean, I hurt my back during it, so that kind of threw things off a little bit for me. But that's just how this rolls. You know what I mean? It's all part of being prepared. It's part of being prepared is being physically prepared.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a lot of things like that I learned that will really go into it. Being physically prepared. Something I also want to talk about too with you. Like the traveling part of it, the eating part. Like there's just so much that goes into the sport that's like outside the fishing that you kind of got to have like in order if you expect to do good. Like come game day. It's just not showing up and just fishing your ass off. Like there's the planning, there's the logistics, there's the like there's just the traveling. Like I mean, to travel anywhere between 6 to 18 hours, to go pre-fish and the pre-fish for days in, days off. Just the fatigue of it. You know what I mean? And then finally comes the game day. You got to have all your ducks in order.
Yeah, it's just not easy, man. And but before I kind of got into this, kayak fishing stuff, I'm kind of a homebody, man. So for me, traveling, man, it kind of takes a little. I mean, that in of itself, it takes a little bit out of me, And like you said, man, just days in and days out. Everyone's, you talk to people who don't do these level of events, and they don't understand. They're just like, well, you're just out fishing for a week. That's like vacation. And I'm like, well, yeah, I am fishing. I am doing something I love, and I am with some people that I really care about. But it's way more than just a vacation, man.
Yeah.
There's way more to it. There's a lot of work involved in it, And honestly, than I normally want to.
Right.
Pre-fishing, I don't always want to spend 12 hours a day on the water.
Yeah. I mean, because I remember pre-fishing and just being like redundant. I couldn't wait for the tournament to be over because I was just tired of being on the, because I mean, like, it's because like you're really like, it's not just recreational fit. Like we're, a bite's exciting and like going on the bite's still exciting, but it's like there's so much pressure on the bite where it's just like you'll find the fish and then hoping that bite doesn't turn off and making sure you have a plan. Like it's just not going out there and be like, having a few beers, catching some fish. You catch them, no big deal. If you don't catch them, no big deal. It's like, no, if you don't catch them, it's a very big deal. And it's a shitty feeling to know that you don't have a plan or that the plan didn't come together the way you thought it was going to come game day. And it's just, it's a lot of anxiety that I get a lot of times when I do tournament fishing.
Dude. Yeah. I mean, there is a lot of anxiety, and honestly, that's what I'm feeling right now. I feel that everyone feels it at different times. And I feel it like a week, 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out. That's when I feel it the most. Yeah. I don't feel a whole lot once I get down there and once I get on the water and I start doing what I do. But leading up to it and preparing for it and wondering about all these what ifs, what's the weather going to do, man? What's the boat tournament that we just found out that's going to happen down there going to do on Saturday? And how's that going to affect where I want to fish and how I want to fish? And it's just like all these questions roll through your head, And I'm a light sleeper. I have a hard time sleeping sometimes, and this just makes it harder beforehand to sleep, man. I'll wait. Like yesterday morning, I woke up literally like this morning. I woke up like at 1:30 in the morning, and I got my tablet out and I just started looking at the Seminole, man. Yeah. And I looked at that map. I can't tell you how much already, but I just started scrolling around that map, looking. I'm like. And it's just I feel anxiety now.
well, how's it now? Because Lake Seminole's back on the list. First event. You've been there before. You've done it. Like, how much does that like go into like your planning? I mean, like, is it good because you have eliminated water, or is it good because now you know spots, but you don't know if those spots are going to be like they were last year? Like, I mean, I was always curious. Like, with guys, because a lot of guys down south that fish, like in Tennessee, and they fish a lot of those waters over and over again. But they still find it hard come game day. What does it mean to you to go back to a water? Like, what do you take with you? What do you leave out of it? Like, what's your whole approach fishing to a lake that you're supposed to be, somewhat comfortable with?
Right. I mean, so the good thing about going to a place that you've been before is you got a little bit of history, and it saves you some time. Like, I got all the ramps marked already, right? So I don't have to do that. I already have a kind of an idea what I think the fish will be doing down there. So you just have to expand upon that, and I'm not a local, which is a good thing because, when you fish local waters, I feel like it's harder because you rely on, you keep going back to where you fished in the past, right? And what do they always tell you in in tournament fishing? You can never fish the past.
Right.
So I find that a lot of times it's harder for the locals to do well on these lakes. Like if you look at last year's Hobie events, only one event had a local win it.
Is that the Coosa?
Yep. That's the Coosa, man. So that shows you right there that how much it changes, and when guys come in with a fresh perspective too, right? Some guys will be throwing baits that maybe the fish don't see as much because they're from the Northeast and they're now in the Southwest. Right. Or, you know what I'm saying? It's just that someone comes in with a fresh perspective, a different bait. They look at things a little differently than all the locals have been for years because that's just how it's been for years,
Yeah.
And I think that has a lot to do with it, man. I really do. Just having that fresh perspective and looking at things a little differently, So, and everybody's hungry, man. Yeah. I mean, and I thought 2020, I thought everyone was really hungry. Oh my God, man. Everyone I'm talking to is just, dude, they're drooling. They're chomping at the bit. I mean, these guys, I mean, I think the competition is even going to be at another crazy. It's going to move up even higher this year. Well, I don't think it could get much higher from last year, but I think it's even going higher. I think everyone's just hungry, man.
Well, I don't know what it was about last season, but like I think you're right. It got me fired up. Like run the podcast and talking to the guests who were fishing the Hobie events, and then watching the Hobie, like them going through the pandemic and getting all the way to the tournament. I was fired up, and like it's like, and this year, like there's no way I'm not doing Hobie events this year. It just there's something just pumping me up about it. Like I don't know if it's just the level of competition, the way the people were playing the game last year. I don't know. It's just there's just something about it now where it's like, it's the Hobie series. It's all I think about right now.
Yeah, they've really. I mean, AJ's done a killer job at at capturing the excitement, keeping the level of professionalism super high, keeping the drama out of it as much as you can possibly do with this. You know what I mean? Because we're in the social media age, so there's drama everywhere. But I mean, and to be able to do that through the pandemic.
Yeah.
They kept all that through the pandemic, so yeah, and this year, and I don't know what it is, man. I think there's just something happening right now in kayak fishing, and I can't put a word to it. I can't even really hardly describe it, but there's just a certain amount of excitement to it. It kind of reminds me of mountain biking back in the 90s. That was taken off, and there was a certain excitement there for a certain amount of time where people were just like, it wasn't just doing well. It was just excitement about the sport.
Yeah.
I think that's what we have right now. There's people that are just excited about the sport, and it's not even necessarily guys who are going to tournaments. They're excited about the tournaments, but they're also excited about all the other aspects of it too, and all these other freedoms that we get with it too. There's just something special happening right now, man. It's like magic, and it's like if you don't see it and appreciate it now, when it's gone and it's over with, and things change.
Yeah,
things change. It just,
Yeah, you got to ride this one out. It looks, I don't know. I think 2021 with what they do with the schedule, I feel like it was a lot more inclusive. And I'm not saying anything about the years before that, but it's just like it was to the point where it's like they got like when they made that Champlain tournament. I'm like, dude, I have to travel now because seriously, if they're going to invest in like your area, like it's almost disrespectful. Like for me, like if I'm going to do this event, then I need to be able to go down south and do a few events or whatever because this is for everyone. This isn't, you can't feel like they didn't give you an opportunity to go out there and compete and to, get on board. Like they provided so much for people this coming season where it's like I'm like all in, like to the point where it's like, it just makes sense. It's like if they're going to support the Northeast, like everyone's been asking them to do, then the Northeast has also got to come in there and do the same thing and travel and join and really get involved in like the community because that's what it is. It's a bunch of crazy, anglers who are just traveling to the country, like high stakes gambling, just getting after it. I'm just like, I don't know what it is about the schedule, but it fired me up and made me really want to get in there and start playing ball with everybody.
Dude, I'm excited for Champaign too, man. I've never been there. That's been on my bucket list forever. And I like how it's going to play out totally different than a lot of the southern lakes play out, man.
Yeah, me too.
The smallmouth factory. It's just going to fish differently from that stuff down there. So I think it's just adding another dynamic to it by going that far into the Northeast. Because, do you get much farther into the Northeast?
Not in America. You can go. I think you can go about 2 hours north of Champlain, but you'll still be on Lake Champlain, but you'll be at the Canadian border.
Exactly right. Exactly, man. So it's just so exciting, man. It just really is. And man, and talk about picking world-class waters for every single event too, man. And that's what fires me up a lot too, because a lot of this stuff, this is all new water to me. Most of our Champagne's going to be new water. So it just gets me fired up to go to these places. You know what I mean? Yeah. Even though it's going to be like a 14-hour drive or 15-hour drive to Champaign, man, I'm all in, man. I'm in for it, man.
Well, I'm curious to see and if you can fish, you can fish. I know that, but I'm ready to see like some of those guys from down south come up to the Northeast and seeing how it's going to change their game up a little bit. Like, I know it's fishing, but still, I want to see when you do have these deep, Northeast lakes like Lake Champlain, where pretty much a glacier lake. It's just huge. Deep and the small, it's just a different body of water. I'm curious to see how much it's going to what these guys are going to do when they get up here, because they have been fishing so many just lakes off the Tennessee River and places like that. I like to see I'm just really curious. I want to see what Russ Snyder's going to do. I want to see what how Cody Milton's going to fish something like that. I just think it's going to be interesting. I know they can do it. I just want to see what they're going to do and and how they're going to approach that kind of fishing.
Yeah, and those two guys you just mentioned too, man, are two incredibly diverse anglers, man. Those guys, I feel like they can go anywhere, just anywhere, and catch big fish.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the cool things about having a podcast, because when they do go up there, I'm going to be able to talk to them and ask them what they had to change. I just find it all interesting, especially a guy like Russ Snyder, who, like you said, can go anywhere in the country. He just went, he took everyone's money over here on the East Coast and then got greedy and drove all the way to California and took all their money and that's just what he does. And I don't think there's a body of water he can't go and be successful on.
man. And I really like Russ, man.
Yeah.
I like, you know, we last year we fished a creek together, man, that was really small, and you know, it quickly because it was such a small creek, and we both were there, and we were both shocked that anyone else was there because it was such a small creek. But you know, after having that experience with him, man, and we just worked it out and we talked it out. He was such a nice guy, man, and we were like, you know, he was like giving me tips, like, you know, because I was having a hard time getting my 5th fish on the 2nd day, and he's just like, you know, there's a log jam down there. Just, you know, after having that experience with him, man, I really like Russ. The guy, I really want to beat him, man.
It's like, dude, I love you, man, but just something about your face. I want to punch it. I don't get it.
It is, man. It is. I mean, he just wins so much that you just feel accomplished if you place in front of Russ, man. Honestly, right. You know, you're like, even if you don't make it in the money, you're like, well, I was in front of Russ Snyder, you know?
Yeah, dude. It's such a, and it's, I mean, he is the nicest guy in kayak fishing right now. I've tried to get him on the show. I've tried to, get him fired up. He's just so nice. You can't do it, man. And like, it's just, he's just like a very nice assassin. Like he'll come in, smile, and then just start executing people because that's what he does in the water, man. He's just so efficient.
He's just such a nice guy, man. And that's one of the great things about this sport, right? Is that some of our best guys are super nice guys, man. They're setting an example for a lot of the rest of us to kind of like be nicer.
Yeah.
You know?
Be nicer, avoid the drama. I mean, there's a lot of drama too in kayak fishing, but when you look at it, it's never the top guys that are participating in that drama. Like they're just going out and just cashing checks and traveling, and they're always making these awesome videos with all their friends, and it's just like, look, those guys are winning and accomplishing things that none of us are. So why are we bitching about the stupid, you know, whatever team you're on or the rule set that you agree or disagree with? It's like these guys don't give a shit. All they do is go out there, they just fish hard, and they take money, and hell, half of them are getting paid to fish now.
Yeah. I mean, and that's you hit on it right. You hit it right on the head, man. While everyone else is spending a lot of energy and time arguing about something that, whatever it is, whatever you're arguing about online, these guys are map studying. Yeah. These guys are putting that time into the water. They're putting that time and energy into catching fish. And I think that shows, man. I mean, it really shows in the quality of their character and their quality of angler that they are.
Right. Well, cool, man. I want to talk to you because it's the perfect time. You know, the traveling hasn't started, but it's coming. It's coming. And so one of the things I'm starting to see, and I know what it is about this year, that's when I really started to notice it, is it's, you know, everybody loves a good kayak, right? We'll sit around, we'll talk about our kayaks, and we'll bring up the new things that we've rigged up. But something I think it gets overlooked, I think is just as popular, or, you know, whatever, is the trailers and the traveling kits that you guys are making. It's like you guys are showing them off like you're in a motorcycle club, or like everyone's like comparing their trailers together now. What has been your thought on it? Are you trying to make traveling easier? Like talk about that part of the fishing, like traveling and having the right stuff to travel with, and what are you guys trying to do with these trailers, and you know why this over, you know, pulling it in the back of your truck like I do? Like what are you guys like? How do you look at traveling now?
Yeah, I mean, so that's become such a big part of it, right? Because you're driving 12 hours, you're driving 15 hours, you know, to these events. So being efficient with traveling has become such a big part of the sport, you know. And with these trailers that a lot of people are building versus guys with trucks, you know, it just depends what you're doing. I'm seeing even guys with trucks get trailers because they're spending so much time on the road that they need that truck space for gear.
Yeah.
Because, you know, some of these guys are hitting 2 big events. So they'll be gone 2 to 3 weeks. That's a long time to be on the road. You got to take a lot of stuff if you're hitting 2 or 3 events like that, because each lake's going to fish different, and you might be 10 hours apart. So you might be in 2 different parts of the country fishing. So you got to prepare for weather. You know, you got to bring all the clothes. So I think that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the guys get these trailers because they're bringing so much more stuff because they're doing so many more events, or they're traveling super far, so they want to bring everything that they need. You know, for me, I got a Subaru Outback. You know, it's not a small car, but it's not a big car either. It's not a giant truck. It's not a big SUV. So I have, you know, my thing's always been the trailer and put a lot of stuff in my trailer. I redid my old one last year. which was awesome. It's not real quick. It wasn't real quick to change spots. You know what I mean? I couldn't wet launch my kayak. So this year I built a new trailer up, and I bought a new trailer, and I built a second level on it, and I'm wet launching to make it quicker. But I couldn't lose too much storage space, so I had to get a custom rod box made. All my rods in, all my spare reels, all my spare rods. And when I talk about my baits, that's my just my soft plastics are going in there. Mm-hmm. I carry a lot of soft plastics. I mean, I'm like a junkie with soft plastics. So, you gotta bring them all, man. I can't just leave them at home. Everyone's like, well, you're not going to use that. Why even bring that? I'm like, I just have to. Right. I have to bring crawl trailers even if I'm not going to throw a jig. I have to bring worms even if I'm not going to throw a worm. I just have to. Because sometimes, this has happened to me in a couple tournaments, man, I've dug into my box and I pulled out a bait that changed my tournament around, right? Something that was weird, something that I maybe haven't thrown for 2 or 3 years. It was a weird color or something. But that's happened to me 3 times this year or last year. So that just shows you that, for me, I have to bring, and it's a confidence thing too for me. So that's what's happening, man. People's trailers, and frankly, like 5 years ago, man, we didn't see trailers very often.
No, that's why I was curious. Like this year, I really noticed, like between you, Harshman, and some other guys, it's like everyone else is still showing pictures of their boats, but you guys are out there showing pictures of your trailers and the way your storage gear. And I'm like, this is actually pretty good because this is actually because I am one of those guys who travels in a truck, and like a lot of times I'm like, dude, I don't have enough room for all of this because there's only so much finite room in the back of a truck. So once you put that kayak in there, that's like 60-70% of your space. And then
what do you do when you go to a hotel, right?
Exactly.
You got all your stuff. You gotta, so that's my thing because I spend a lot of time in the hotels. You know what I mean? Because I'll get down there. I usually get a house with guys for most of these events. So, but that usually happens on Wednesday. So, look, for instance, Lake Seminole, man, I'm going to drive down Monday. So I'm going to have 2 nights in a hotel, and I might have 1 night on the backside coming back in a hotel. So I got to have all my stuff super secure. And so for me, when I built up this recent trailer, that was one of the, that's in my mind big time because my old trailer, I could easily have tons of room I could lock it down, right? So I had to have almost as much or as much room in the new trailer. But when you want to wet launch it, changes everything, man. So you have to change your whole approach, And the kind of the cool thing is I'm lucky I got a welding friend, right? Who can weld. Yeah. And there's so many cool designs from all the different guys who are making trailers right now. We've got guys who are making these super high-end kayak trailers, several companies doing that. You got guys who are just making their stuff, So I've just taken all these little ideas from other people, man, and I've kind of put it into one trailer for me. And I'm hoping that this will be my last trailer I ever have to deal with again because it takes so much time to build these things up.
Well, what do you think that the thing is now? Like I know, like at one point, like people were buying the trailers. They could just you get the pieces, you put it together, you read the instructions. But I see a lot of guys now, like they're buying like old jet ski trailers or old John boat trailers, and they're really trying to make it their own. Like what have you been doing? Like what did you decide to go?
So that's exactly what I did, man. I was lucky enough that Brian Tacey up at Strictly Sail, man, he told me he had a trailer for sale when he heard I was looking for a trailer, and it happened to be it's a jet ski style trailer, but it's actually made for kayaks. So the springs are lighter in it. It's a lightweight frame. And it's galvanized, so you can back it in the water, no problem. LED lights on it. So I took that as a base platform, right? And I put on a second level to it, but it's a 1-arm second level. So it's built up on one side and then comes up over the top. And I have 2 boxes, and then the other side's completely open. So when I wet launch that, I don't have to have that rope all the way around all this stuff. And I can easily get in and then manipulate my kayak when I'm loading and unloading it at the ramp. You know what I mean? I can get access to it really easy. And I stole that idea from someone, online. I can't even remember who it was now, but it was one of the kayak guy, one of the guys who are making fancy kayak trailers that made one. And I saw the design. I'm like, God, that's exactly what I need to do, man. And my buddy Greg said, he's like, man, I can do that. No problem. And we'll just weld it up at my shop. And he hooked me up, and he hooked me up with this sweet metal box for my rods with a big giant lid on it. It's 9.5 feet long. So I get my 7-foot rods go in there. I mean, it's just killer, man. I got it all set up so my rods are elevated and they're secured. And even if I slam on my brake like they can rod tubes. And that's what I did, man. So, I took a trailer, I took an idea, and I luckily took it to a guy who has the skills to bring my thoughts and make them reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how long over how many years did it really take you to kind of decide what you really wanted and needed? Because I mean, a lot of them are looking unique. A lot of people are putting a lot of unique touches to it. I mean, it's almost like people with their RV trailer or their RV mobile whatever pop up whatever. Like they're just finding ways to better store stuff, to better fit their needs. Like, how'd you just sit around and just really think hard about what would best suit you for traveling?
Yeah, so I redid my trailer last year, and I almost bought a jet ski style trailer last year. So I've been thinking about redoing my trailer a lot from last year. So it's really been, this is an evolution thing. I bought a trailer about 7 years ago, and it changed designs like 4 or 5 times, And it really came down to me hurting my back this year to make me go, well, maybe I want to wet launch my kayak now,
Right.
So I don't have to rely on me having to pick it up and put it on anything. And it's just being on the road, man. It's just my trailer is designed around my tournament needs. I can lock everything up on it. It's actually got a little 12-volt alarm on it, motion alarm on it. So if someone messes with the trailer, it's separate from the car alarm that will go off.
Nice.
There's so much, and that's one of the things I love about this sport, man, is that we all make stuff our own.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like my trailer is different than so-and-so's trailer. I might have stolen one dude's idea, but there's 7 other ideas that I stole from 7 other people that I put on there too.
Yeah.
There's things going on all over the trailer. They're a little different. That took from other people, and just put it together to make it my own, man. And it's just such a cool thing.
Yeah, if you steal enough ideas, eventually it becomes original.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the truth of it too.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, man. So it's that's one of the funny things about this sport is that so much of it is based around traveling.
Yeah.
And just getting there, man, and getting around once we get down there and stuff. And it really seeing my buddy Mitchell's trailer that was that Denny built for him, and seeing Chris Blair's trailers and that stuff, man. When you start seeing these high quality trailers and some of the cool ideas that these guys put into them, man, there's some cool stuff happening, man. Like Chad Hoover's new trailer, right?
Yeah.
His trailer is pretty. I mean, I haven't seen anything like that before. It's decked out with a tent and top, and just how it's built with the rack. I mean, that's a cool trailer, man.
Yeah. You ever thought about this, because when you look at kayak fishing, I think of ingenuity, people who just found ways to make things work, and I'm just dude, there's such a market in that, coming, and you see a lot of it, but just all the customizations that even my short 4 years in the sport, watching something that started off with just some redneck who knew how to weld and decided to do this to his kayak or his trailer, and now that's something you'll see sold on Yak Attack or some weird some company picks up these ideas. It's there's just so much that just from the people like American ingenuity that becomes a market and just our own little personal sport.
Oh, it's cool, man. And that's one of the things that's exciting about our sport, man, is that we're developing so quickly. So every year someone has a new idea about something and they're applying it in a different way. I mean, we got a lot of DIYers, you know what I mean? I like to work on stuff with my hands. I like to make it my own, and there's so many other people in the field like that too. There's guys making their own torpedo mounts, and there's guys making their own bow mounts. I mean, there's just so many innovative guys, and you get a guy who knows how to make stuff, and you give him, and he gets a good idea in his head, dude. That's dangerous.
Yeah, very. And that's that's the thing. You can get away with it now because the market hasn't caught up with these guys with these like just genius ideas, and it takes a while, but eventually people catch on to it. But I've just seen so many like, oh wow, that's really unique. And then the next season, like they finally caught up with this guy, but they're still ahead of the market in a lot of ways. I mean, it's just crazy that where our sport goes through sometimes, and the things I see that people are doing with just these simple little thoughts of, oh, I want to be able to get here, or I want to be able to make this easier to move, or or whatever. I want to be more stationary, or whatever it is, and then they find a way to make it work, and it's one of the beautiful things about our sport.
Yeah. I mean, it really is, man. And things how fast things are moving too, man. It's just really cool, man. I mean, I saw some really cool at the national champ who had in his truck. He had a rack set up so he could have 2 kayaks in it, and he had the top one be able to get pulled on with this winch thing that he had. He had these 2 bars that would come down and would ramp up, and then the second one. I mean, it was just cool. I've never seen anything like it since then. It was the only time I saw it, and the dude stuff. I mean, it was just the coolest thing ever.
So how much is how organized are you when traveling? Like me, I'm like the worst. Like I got boxes, and sometimes I don't even put my clothes in a bag, and sometimes they're just like sitting in the seat. I'm horrible. I get off work, I grab what I can, I kiss the wife and kid goodbye, and I take off. And like by the time wherever I get to where I get, I spend like the first, like after I go fishing, I'll spend like the rest of that day just trying to organize my stuff, because I don't travel that way. I'm a horrible traveler.
Man, I'm pretty organized, honestly, for traveling, man. I got everything's in its place, and I got stuff grouped up. I got stuff in bags that I know I'm going to take into the house. And yeah, I got my stuff relatively organized. I'm not the most organized person, but it's pretty much down, man, because I don't like to search for my stuff when I'm traveling.
Right.
I don't like to get to my house at the end of the day of pre-fishing and being tired and being like, where's this at? And I'm trying to figure it out, digging through all my stuff. I kind of want to just open it up, be like, this is what I need, pull it right out, tie it on, or pull out a charger or whatever it is, and just be able to get it at hand's reach.
Yeah.
I'm pretty organized.
Label box.
I'll start packing. Honestly, I've already started packing for Seminole. I mean, just straight up, honestly. Like today, I was going through all my baits, right? We're weeks out still, right? But I'm going through all my baits. I took all my bags I put my baits into. I put them in these clear plastic bags, and I relabeled them. So it's just easier for me to read, even though I didn't really need to do that, right?
Right.
The labels from last year were still on there. I just redid them all for this tournament. You know what I mean? I'm pulling all my fishing line off. I've already started prepping and organizing for Seminole, And I'll be done packing for Seminole like a week out, clothes and everything. I'll have it all dialed in. I'll have all my electronic stuff together. I'll have all my charging cables together. Yeah, I mean, you don't realize, like you travel easy because you just grab and go, man.
Yeah.
For me, it's like weeks and weeks of prep just to travel to get to the place.
Yeah, but the difference is like you're placing a lot better than I am, so maybe I need to like pick up some clues here and correct myself.
Well, it is also a time management thing too, right? Because the more time you spend just focusing on the task at hand versus looking for your left sock,
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with just like building a good habit. I mean, it was something I learned in the military. Like the person who. And we've all heard the saying of, like if you want to be a better person, start with making your bed in the morning, type stuff. And that's probably kind of like why when you look at someone who's successful in like any sport or anything, they usually got a pretty good organization about them. And like, that's not what made them better, but it was probably the discipline of doing that makes them better at doing other things. It kind of like just, it kind of bleeds over to other things in your life. Like if you're the kind of person who takes that serious and puts in like that time to make something right, you're usually going to do that too with something else, like like actual fishing. Like when you're actually on the water and you're doing things like having the discipline or like the whatever to do what you're supposed to be doing instead of just being like me. The way I fish is probably like the way I travel, just all over the goddamn place. Like, no organization, no commitment, just all over the place. I imagine that if I would take time and plan things out better and organize myself and you just try to become a more disciplined person, I imagine I'd probably be a better angler at some point. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, that will probably help a little bit, man. It will probably help a little bit.
But mentally, like, okay, well, I'm an organized person. I got this, or I mean, I don't know. I do think that we've talked about this before, like, the head game of fishing is like the hardest part. It's like the most important part. Like if you don't got a good head on your shoulders, you're going to have a hard time out there. If you can't keep yourself cool, if you can't, just stay rational and make good decisions, like you're never going to be successful. And I think just doing things like, do I need to label everything? No, but I'm going to, because it's part of like the process, of being, in the zone or staying disciplined and doing the things, not because you want to, but because you need to or whatever. So I don't know. I get to see a benefit in being like that tedious and that, committed to like whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, because I was talking to a buddy when I was redoing my baits on the phone, and again, you just went through that stuff, at the end of the season for the TOC. And, it's like a mental thing for me just to remind me of what I have in the bags. And it also just kind of sets my mind at ease that, yeah, I do have whatever color. Yeah, I do have whatever strange little bait that may work that I probably won't throw anyway. But it just gives me some type of little mental confidence on that. And it's one of those things that it's kind of hard to describe to people until they do it and kind of experience it. Because it's also like the same reason I take 7 rods with me when I go out. I'm only going to use 2, honestly.
Yeah.
One, sometimes it's just one, right? But I have confidence because I have all those rods behind me that if something changes, I can pull out my crankbait rod. I can pull out my jig rod. I can pull out my worm rod. I can pull out my top water rod. They're all right there. So I have confidence that if something changes from the plan I have in my head, I'll be okay. Right. And for me, it's just like that's removing one thing that's going to distract me. I take that and it's removed. So I no longer even have to think about that. And that just allows me to zero in and put those blinders on and just get that zero, that laser-like focus where you're just looking at one thing and making that one thing happen.
Yeah, that makes 100%. I mean, that's what you do when we're in the military. Like, so we have those tedious, checklists, and we're checking our gear not just once, not just twice, and then someone else comes in and checks it once or twice. And that way, when we finally do leave the wire and we go out there to do what we got to do, like we know where everything is. We know, like what we're supposed to do, and like everyone's bag's the same, everyone's trucks are the same. So when shit does hit the fan or when shit does go bad, we're more prepared because our shit's organized and we have a good plan. So shit can go bad and we can adjust now because we know where things are and things like that. So it makes sense to just be ready, be prepared, have things organized. So when shit does hit the fan, you're not panicking and running around with your head cut off, trying to find a rod or make a rod out of thin air that will do the stuff that you needed to do. Like, I mean, it makes total sense.
Yeah. And like we were saying, if your head's not right, nothing else is going to be right. Right. I mean, if your head's right, stuff can still go sideways, but you'll be able to deal with it, man. And it's all about getting your head right, because it's almost become like a ritual to me, getting ready for a tournament, man. Yeah. I have certain things that I do a certain way when I'm getting ready for tournaments, man. I buy I buy my food the night before I go. Every tournament. I mean, it'll screw me up if I buy it a day before that. It will screw me up because then I'll be like, did I get the right stuff? And I'll have to relook through everything again. Right. So I just buy everything the night before I go in the tournament. I go through all my baits the week before. I mean, there's a timeline, there's progression, and it's become such a ritual. And it's kind of crazy, but it's like when you hear about the baseball players that they have like a lucky shirt or they got a lucky hat that they wear into the stadium or just something like that. It's like a ritual that you get into, and it helps set your mind at ease and helps get you ready and prepared, to do this stuff.
Yeah, I agree. All right, man, we'll wrap this thing up. But first, we got to talk about like what are you looking at for next year? It's right around the corner. Obviously, you're doing Lake Seminole, but what are we thinking? Like, what are we most excited about? What are we doing? Are we sticking with Hobie? Are we doing any other trails? What?
Man, so Hobie's going to be another big. I'm concentrating on Hobie. That's my main focus again. I think that's the best opportunities for me there. I'm going to do some KBF stuff. I'm still waiting on the bass schedule still.
Yeah.
I mean, I know those guys are having some coordination problems because of COVID and stuff, but I'm like, it's 2021,
Yeah.
So I don't know what I'm going to do there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit them in or where they're at. You know what I mean? Yet. But, last year I didn't do a lot of the smaller tournament stuff that I used to do. I used to do the Kentucky series and a few Michigans and, some Ohio stuff. And I didn't hardly do any of that last year because I was so focused on the Hobie. I'm going to bring some of that back in. I'm going to cherry pick some of the more fun events like Dale Hollow. I'm going to do a couple Dale Hollow events. I'm going to do a couple Lake St. Clair events. So I'm going to cherry pick some other events and kind of throw them in with the Hobie stuff. But Hobie's the main focus, man. I mean, I really want that tournament champion. I really want to be a Ryan Lambert, right?
I don't want to be Ryan Lambert, but I wouldn't mind winning the
tournament.
Yeah,
I don't want to be Ryan Lambert, But it's like I want to be that Jody Queen. You know what I mean? Those guys have been the tournament champion. That's just like such a big focus that I really want. And it's such a hard thing to do because everybody wants it as bad as I do. I mean, that's the bottom line. Everybody who's going. You talk to Jay Wallen, he's super hungry for next year, man. He's like a bear ready to tear into people, man.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely I probably won't. My Hobie stuff won't start until June because I don't think I'll be able to make it down south during February, March. Just the whole COVID thing is still being a pain in the ass. So the traveling and then plus I'm gonna save some money up and get ready for the last portion of the Hobie Trail Series. I imagine I'll be able to do like the last 4 events. That's what I'm really shooting for. Because just lacrosse is some place that I really want to fish really, really bad. So.
Oh, dude, you'll love lacrosse. That's a cool place, man.
Well, cool, man. Has anything changed? Is there anyone else that you want to thank that made fishing easier for you?
Yeah, I sure do, man. I mean, Hobie has been a big sponsor. I want to thank them. I want to thank Strictly Sail. They just hooked me up with this sweet trailer. I want to thank Greg, my buddy, who's a welder. Who also hooked me up on the trailer. Fishing Online, Catch, Yak Attack, all those guys. I want to thank all those guys. They've all been very helpful to me this year and last year as well.
All right, man. Well, good luck with the upcoming events. I'm also going to talk to you again in the next few months or so. So I'll come up with some other things to talk about. But man, have a great 2021 start.
Man, thanks. You too, brother.
All right, take it easy.
See you.